2.
Hey, everybody, this is Amazing Fantasy Football. I am Josh, and over there is the Rune Glyphberg to my Tony Hawk.
Skaters, I'm Chris.
Chris, he is.
I
They
don't know
said
that
he's a
first
skater boy, and but I just said, see you later, boy.
I'm not a skater boy. I was a poser back when it was cool to be a skater. I mean, it's
Back when it was cool to be a poser? I don't think so.
Exactly. Yeah, the 90s.
I posed as many things in the 90s. I posed as a skater. I posed as a nerd. I posed as... behold, I was bad at skating and math.
I had vision shoes and some fingerboards. Yeah, I thought that was fun.
Oh my god, what a dumb thing, fingerboards.
I know, I thought it was cool. I was a kid. Or whatever I was.
Fingerboards were a thing when I was in high school, so you were in your 20s.
Really? No,
Yeah.
no, this was in school. Yes, it was in school, Josh. Trust me, I was not playing with fingerboards in my early 20s or what have you.
Yes, you were.
Nope. Here, let's just change back to this scene. It's just me.
Let's just get rid of Josh, period, because I am afraid that I am not realizing he's right.
No, I'm not right.
Yes, I am.
Dare you?
Anyways, Chris, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good. Rocking a new mic arm.
Rocking
nobody cares about.
those fingerboards, you know, at the ripe old age of the early 50s.
Early fit? What? No.
Hey, man, it's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
You do that. No, doing good. You know, whatever. Kind of a typical Thursday, typical week. A little busy, you know, getting up Christmas lights and stuff like that. What about you?
You've been getting up these Christmas lights for a month.
Not true. Dude, it's like the
Yes.
7th or 8th. That is a vast improvement from previous years, so suck it. How's your Christmas lights going?
Pretty good, considering I don't give a rat's ass.
Yes, exactly. You don't have the need or the want.
I definitely don't have the want to put up Christmas lights.
There you
I
go.
just like, you know, like when I was a kid, man, like I always like ask my parents, I'm like, why don't we ever put up Christmas lights? My parents were always like, you know how much money it costs to like light those lights and blah, 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 because my mom's really cheap.
You mentioned that to me a couple of times before.
And like now it's just like, it's not even that with me. It's just that I'm like, I don't have any kids. I'm single. Like Christmas is just another day I get off of work, you know, like I don't really care.
I hear that.
I just
hear
don't.
that. I'm sure I would approach it differently if I A, didn't have kids, B, didn't have a single family home or whatever the hell you call it. But I do kind of enjoy it. Yeah, got some new lights this year. Weren't that expensive. Oh, and to the comment about how much they cost to run. I mean, they're all LED nowadays. They're pretty low power. But still reasonably bright.
You know, even then, if you want to put up your Christmas lights and, you know, pay whatever it costs to light them, cool. You know, I'm not here to judge. Like, I could care less about that. Like, I just like...
Right. I pay to run these computers and these monitors and any other electronics.
That's what's right. That's jacking up your electric bill.
What electric bill, Josh? I set it and forget it. It could be $1,600 for all I know. I'm kidding. Power is relatively reasonably priced around here. Speaking of reasonably priced, how about gas prices lately? Here's to that.
What's the gas prices around your neighborhood? Because they're always more expensive than mine.
Well, yeah, I'm closer to a big city. $3.20. I swear I saw
you're not that much more than us then.
Nice. I swear I saw 303 at the Meijer, which is a grocery store around these parts.
Hey, Chris, can we just stop all this gas talk? Because I officially feel like I'm fucking old as shit right now.
Well, you're the boomer, not me.
You brought up gas prices, boomer.
Hey, man, it's the little things that make me. You want to talk some weather? And whatnot?
Not really. I mean, the computer says the sleet's coming, so no.
Oh, boo. Yeah, honestly, I didn't know about the weather that much. I was just being silly.
Let's get on with this show because, man, I'm done with this old people talk.
Right, me too. You ready for some news?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, let's roll with the news, folks. We've got sources. Doctors concluded today that 49ers quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo does not need foot surgery and it is not a Liz Frank injury. And if rehab goes smoothly, he could have a chance to return in 7 to 8 weeks, making him a potential playoff contributor. To be clear, that's a NFL playoff contributor. You can drop him off your fantasy roster. There's no need to hold on to him. He's irrelevant in fantasy, but I just thought it was a nice update for the fantasy pieces with the Niners there. Adam Schefter reports Lamar Jackson knee has a PCL sprain week to week. Also, another update to go along with that, Lamar Jackson is unlikely to play versus the Steelers this weekend.
So he's not going to play versus the Steelers this weekend. Got it.
I don't believe so. No. Excuse me.
More about his replacement later on.
Really digging deep. All right. This is basically a repeat from last week's show for me as far as those go. I'm kidding. Kind of not kidding, but kind of kidding. Anyway.
Great. I'll just fall asleep at the end of the show. Okay, keep
Well,
going.
I mean, you usually do anyway, so.
Not true.
Speaking of old people. I'm rolling today. All right, McVay. Stafford has a spinal cord contusion. Obviously, me and you talked a little bit off air. We'll get to that in a moment about Baker Mayfield. Yeah, I've talked a little bit in a couple of our fantasy chats and said, the long and short of it for me is I think the guy has proved everything he needs to prove. He should hang it up for his health, his family, and yeah.
It ain't going to happen.
Okay. Trevor Lawrence, that is, did not practice Wednesday. Toe is the issue there. I'm going to have a few Wednesday updates with no Thursday updates, to be clear.
It happens sometimes.
I double checked. Yeah, exactly. There's going to be several of them, I feel like. Let's continue. As I mentioned, Rams claimed Baker Mayfield off of waivers. He's in there tonight. Tonight being Thursday night, of course. Not sure how he's doing. I heard a couple good things about his start. Robert Saleh, Jets head coach, says Mike White is going to start Week 14 versus the Bills.
No surprise there.
Yeah, Mahomes not affected by bruised foot from Week 13, so he should be fine.
One more Stepped his toe, got it.
Stepped his toe on the coffee table. I think I just snorted. That was weird. Sources, the Falcons are looking to the future, making a quarterback switch to rookie Desmond Ridder as a starter. To be clear, they are on bye this week. Oh, I forgot to mention that. Teams on bye. We got 6 of them, folks. Bears, Colts, Commanders, Falcons, Packers, and Saints.
Oh, my.
And, I kind of glanced at it. I was like, I don't know. There's Watson with the Packers, obviously, at least Aaron Jones. I don't know, Olave with the Saints. But I was like, what really kind of missed
Jonathan
this week
Taylor
is targeting some of these defenses, like the Bears, the Falcons. Okay, maybe that's it.
You mean targeting the defenses that they're going up against these teams?
Yeah, exactly. We don't have the luxury of
phrase it that way. Okay, just wanted to crystallize that statement.
Yep.
Some clarity.
So on to running backs. DeAndre Swift, ankle limited in practice on Wednesday. No surprise there. He's probably going to be fine. Had basically his only other great fantasy game of the season last week.
They called me
Since week
Mr.
1.
Glass.
First double-digit carry / 20-plus point fantasy game. That might have been full PPR when I glanced at it, to be clear. But solid fantasy game, obviously. Good fantasy game. Bengals site confirms Mixon to remain the one. I didn't know there was any doubt. I mean, I guess because
P. Ryan's played pretty good in his absence. Not like great, but good.
He played good. He was my sleeper last week, much to your chagrin. Saquon Barkley.
Very much so. Still have a problem with that, but keep going.
Saquon Barkley neck pops up on New York on the Giants injury report. I have no further updates as of now. Najee did not practice oblique. Go ahead.
Do you think it's just like veterans rest?
Yeah, I feel like 90% of these are. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Najee did not practice Wednesday, oblique, more maintenance, more veteran maintenance
but there. That's been an ongoing injury with him. So
for a few weeks now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not the whole season, but a few weeks. He's been a lot of dings and yeah, I'm going to stop there.
Dents and dings?
Yes, that's much better than what I was going to say.
He's a fridge.
No, you don't.
He's a discount fridge.
You don't want to know. Running back Kenneth Walker III will have tests today. I'm pretty sure this is a day or two old report. Test today on what Coach Pete Carroll called a jammed ankle. The injury, the hope is it's not serious, different from a sprain because the joint jammed down and not one side or the other. Strange injury. Anyway, tests coming. A little update here, or added news to that situation. Running back Ken Walker battling ankle injury. The Seahawks are signing veteran running back Wayne Gallman. Blah, 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 blah. Added depth. CMC with a knee and Debo with a quad did not practice Wednesday. Again, probably more veteran maintenance, but keep your eyes open. Mark Ingram likely done for the year with an MCL injury. Probably done for his career if I had to guess. Amari Cooper pops up on the injury report with a hip issue. That might be worth it. Yeah, exactly. That might be worth keeping an eye on. He's at home and he's got that amazing home away split, or not amazing home away split, depending how you look at it. So he is home this week, so probably is going to be used by a lot of folks unless this hip thing sticks around. Wideouts, Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins. Cooks with a calf, Collins with a foot. Did not practice Wednesday. DeAndre Hopkins, illness, did not practice Thursday. Hopefully it's just get over. We'll see. Mike Williams was limited Wednesday. I actually was going to talk about one of his teammates, but I pivoted because then he was a full practice on Thursday. Ankle issue, Mike Williams. Limited Wednesday, full on Thursday. So I think he's probably going to play. Cool. Wide receiver Cortland Sutton, dealing with a hamstring injury, is considered unlikely to play versus the Chiefs. Head coach Nathaniel Hackett said. Rondale Moore, again absent with groin injury on Thursday. That's not looking too promising. Cowboys have not made an offer to Odell Beckham. I heard that he told Micah Parsons that he won't be ready for another 5 weeks. And like just tonight, at the pregame for Amazon or whatever, they were talking to folks, and one guy was like, "I'm going to try and convince him to go back to the Giants," or yada yada yada. And I was like, I don't think he's going to be ready, y'all. I mean, maybe in the Super Bowl. I don't know. I just don't think it's worth it right now. He may not get signed. Exactly. I don't think he's going to get signed this year.
I feel like if I had him in redraft leagues, like for some reason, I think at this, like the whole news with the Cowboys saying that he's not ready to play and certainly won't be for several weeks. I'm just going to drop him, like I'm done.
Fantasy wise, he's done.
Yeah. Like it's a lost season for him. His injury happened in the Super Bowl. Like you couldn't get more. You couldn't get any closer to this season from last season than the Super Bowl. It's
different. Yeah, completely different story from when he signed on with Rams last year.
Right.
Yeah, that's all I was gonna say.
He was also signed on from the Rams after he was cut by the Browns too. It wasn't like he.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. It's not like he was coming off an injury.
He wasn't sitting at home. Yeah. A little bit.
He was, but
it's all the tight end news I have, and it's a little bit more of a forward-looking thing. Tight end Zach Ertz, accepting his team Man of the Year award, said he had surgery to repair both his ACL and MCL. Hopes to be ready for week 1 in 2023, but is only in early stages of rehab. So keep an eye on that. I mean, tight ends are thin, man. It's just going to get thinner. I do like their young guy. I think it was last week I used him as a tight end streamer, maybe week before. His name escapes me right now. It didn't go well. He hasn't done anything. What's that?
Trey McBride.
Thank you, McBride. Yes, sir. But it didn't go well. He hasn't done much of anything all year. He's getting the snaps, but that's about it.
But dude, I don't.
Well, Hollywood's back. I think I forgot. That.
No, it doesn't even matter, man. I don't blame you for swinging and missing on a tight end. Like fuck tight ends. Like,
yep, they're awful.
Yeah, they're awful. If they're not Travis Kelce, they're awful.
Ain't that the truth?
All right, Chris. Is that all you got?
That's all I got.
What about Jerry Jeudy? He was limited this week. Nope, nothing. Okay. Let's move along to Dalvin Cook here. My first running back I would like to talk about here. Last week was Cook's first game over 10 points since week 10. So this is not the low-hanging fruit that you might think. But he had bad weeks in weeks 11 and 12. But those were against Dallas and the Patriots, who is a very good and great run D, respectively. Last week was against the Jets, who are giving up the 12th fewest points per game to running backs. So that bodes well for Dalvin Cook who is taking on the Lions this week, who is surprisingly tied with the gang green for the 12th fewest points per game, allowed to running backs, of course. But they are giving up the Lions are giving up the 4th most rushing touchdowns so far this year and the 14th most rushing yards. Receiving work is where the Lions have limited running backs, but Dalvin Cook hasn't really gotten a lot of receiving work so far this year, Chris. So, I mean, honestly,
Been more Madison.
I mean, why would not even that? Like, why would teams throw on the Lions to the running backs when they can just work the perimeter with the wide receivers?
Matchup, absolutely, couldn't agree.
You know, no, in general, like this whole year, you know, like the Lions passing defense has gotten a little bit better as of late with Jeff Okudah kind of stepping up as his quarterback, finally coming into his own just a little bit, you know, and they've gotten a bit better pass rush with Aiden Hutchinson, the rookie that they took in the early first round this past year. So I think and week 3 too, when the Vikings faced the Lions, Dalvin was in on only 61% of the snaps, but he ran for 96 yards and a tutty. So look for Dalvin Cook to be a nice RB start again this week, you know? I mean, it seems a little obvious, but Dalvin Cook has, like I said, has been kind of...
I wouldn't maybe go as far as say mediocre, but yeah, maybe mediocre.
It just hasn't been quite the scoring the points that you would have expected Dalvin Cook.
Especially the last couple weeks. I've struggled with him and Pierce as my top 2 guys, to be quite frank.
Drink?
Gladly. All right, on to my first wide receiver, Fave 5 of the evening. And as I like to do, I go in descending order. So my first couple of guys would be kind of your wide receiver 1s, wide receiver 2s, and on down to your flexes and whatnot. I've got Amon-Ra St. Brown versus the Vikings. One of my favorite receivers in the entire league, if not favorite. Amon-Ra's nickname is the Sun God, and he's playing godly lately. And this week, the Vikings' porous pass D comes to Ford Field, Detroit's home turf, where they are at their best. I forgot to confirm that. I'm pretty sure it's still called Ford Field.
Yeah.
I meant to look that up.
Yeah. It's probably like UNESCO's.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was like, it's probably like a bank or something, or I don't know. But I'm pretty sure it's still Ford Field, folks. They've been playing well there. Vegas has this game as the highest over-under of the week at 52.5. And Detroit is favored by a mere 2.5 points. It should be a divisional shootout that lives up to its reputation. The Vikings rank as the 3rd worst in terms of fantasy points per game given up to wide receivers. Dead last in passing yardage surrendered, and just gave up 162 yards to rookie receiver Garrett Wilson. Amon-Ra's coming into this one red hot in his last 2 games at Ford Field. He is averaging 11 targets, 9.5 receptions, 118 yards, and 1.5 touchdowns per. Amon-Ra is a top 5 receiver for me this week, easily.
Cool. Yeah, that's... Yeah, I agree with you.
An easy one? I really struggle with my 5th guy or 4th, however you want to put it. But no, yeah, first couple are kind of, you know, I guess you could say must starts, top guys.
Okay, my second guy is Miles Sanders, and that is versus the New York Giants. It's a rare occurrence when we're this deep into the season where 2 division rivals haven't played each other yet, but that's what's happening here when the Eagles taking on the Giants. They play each other again in like I think it's 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. Anyways, last week Chris made some very good points for Brian Robinson going up against the G-Men. That's why I asked you about that. And Robinson ran for 96 yards, caught both of his targets, only for 15 yards, but still. Much like with Detroit's run D, who I talked about a minute ago, the G-Men aren't allowing a lot of receiving work to opposing backs. And that is A-okay in this case. Despite Sanders being a very capable pass catcher, Jalen Hurts doesn't really throw the ball that much to the running backs. So it doesn't really matter that Miles Sanders is going up against a good running back receiving defense. It's very specific, but you know, whatever. The Giants have allowed over 1,400 yards on the ground. That's 5th most. And this may seem like low-hanging fruit, but Miles Sanders only topped 11 fantasy points once in the last 4 weeks. So You know, he's only top 15 points 4 times this entire season too. Like Sanders has been a kind of a steady Eddie RB2, you know,
Absolutely.
real high end flex, and that's where I like him this week, you know. Um, I'm sorry. He and like much like his entire season, Sanders has been a very reliable RB2/flex play since their bye. He is averaging 5.25 yards per carry. That's pretty good. But last week he had a season low of 2.4. That was against the Titans' great run D, though. So don't get too discouraged by that. I like Miles Sanders being a higher end RB2 this week.
Love it. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
My next guy, I don't think I've used him all year, despite my severe case of homerism. CeeDee Lamb versus the Texans. Now, to be clear, especially if you've been listening to Josh for weeks now, which, why would anyone want to do that? But I have no idea. I'm just kidding. I digress. This isn't an ideal matchup for wide receivers versus the Texans, particularly for 2 reasons. A, their quarterbacks are downright good. The outside cornerbacks, Steven Nelson and Desmond King, go Hawks, have allowed 4 receptions per game in the last 5 weeks. And slot cornerback, Tavier, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, Thomas, has apparently returned to pre-injury form, allowing a passer rating of only 48 in his coverage. That's where CD plays a lot, is in the slot. Now, some of this might have to do with my second point. They are awful versus the run. Furthermore, Dallas is one of the best rushing offenses in the league, currently 7th in rushing yards and 2nd
We'll talk
in
about
rushing.
it more than a second.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. I think there's one other person later on that I was like, I bet Josh is going to include this guy, where I kind of touch on it for a minute.
We're going to talk about that in a second, so skip over those. Stop taking my talking points.
And C, there's a possibility this is a blowout, and CD is resting in the 4th quarter since Cowboys are favored by 17 points. But I've baked all that into my ranking, along with some other factors. Hear me out. Did I skip a guy? Oh, I sure did. Nope, no problem. Hear me out. First off, CD and Dak have been playing very well lately. CD is currently ranked as the wide receiver 6 in the season and has played good to very well versus other highly ranked passing defenses this season, including the Colts, Bengals, Giants, and Eagles. He has averaged 10.2 targets, 6.2 catches, 81 yards, and 14.62 fantasy points. In most weeks, that would slot him in as a mid to high-end wide receiver 2, and that's exactly what I'm ranking him as this week. A mid to high-end wide receiver 2 in a deceptively tricky matchup with a solid floor. If he scores, he will exceed expectations.
I feel like the only thing I have to push back on is that, and you kind of said it already, is part of it is one of the reasons why these corners have such low stats is you don't have to throw against Texans. You just get up big early.
Absolutely. 2 ways to look at it. A, they're legit good players. B,
their corners are pretty good. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, it's like, you don't have a lot of stats against the corners because teams don't have to throw on them.
Yeah, and
they just run them all over.
I seriously doubt Dallas will quote have to throw. But again, his floor has been so solid.
I know. No. I'm not discouraging him. Just like I guess I guess I would be a little bit on the other end of maybe temper your expectations for CD this week because it could easily be 7 or 8 points. You know, like they just. Like you said, man, Dallas has been running the ball so well, and that's what I guess I'll just segue into like my next guy, and that is Zeke. And I picked Zeke because I feel like Tony Pollard has just been on fire, man. Like he's been
like you kind of said earlier.
Yeah. I was like I wanted to go with Tony Pollard, then I looked at how many points he's been scoring. I was like, Jesus, all right, well, never mind. Like you're starting Tony Pollard regardless, you know.
Yeah, I don't see how you could.
And a lot of teams, you know, maybe outside of Dynasty or whatever, probably don't have Zeke and Pollard, you know. Like it probably didn't work out that way. I'm sure there's teams out there, but yeah,
and it would be quite the headache if you did.
Yeah, not really. Just start both.
Maybe
of them,
not
actually.
Pollard. Yeah, I guess. Well,
I was gonna say, like, it's not really much of a headache. You just start both of them. It's a rare occasion where 2 backs are being very fantasy relevant. Anyways, honestly, since Zeke came back from injury, he's been great. Like not great, but he's been very good. He's been averaging 16.6 fantasy points per game. He has 4 touchdowns in those 3 games since coming back. In week 11 versus the Vikings, he scored 2 of those 4 touchdowns, elevating him to 17.2 points. But that was on just 29% of the snaps. So, but since then, since week 11, Zeke also has 2.8. That was in that game against the Vikings where he's just coming back from injury. 2.8, 5.75, and 4.3 yards per attempt, man. Like that's solid right there.
Absolutely.
You can say that Zeke is just a short yardage guy, but he's running with power. He's maybe not doesn't have quite the wiggle that he did back in the, when he first came out of college, but like he's still running rather well behind Dallas's really good run, at least from what I've seen, at least a really good run blocking offensive line.
Sure.
You watch Dallas more than I do probably, so you can. I'll let you detest on how good they are pass blocking. Later.
I'm just kidding.
But please don't. Mix all that. You can mix all that in with the fact that Houston sucks against defending the run. They're giving up the most points per game to opposing backs, the most rushing yards per game, and the most rushing touchdowns per game. I feel like Zeke gets the most start along with Tony Pollard. You got them both. Start them both. Like. I do not say start 2 running backs from the same team. In fact, I really discourage it. But if you kind of, ass backward your way into this kind of RB duo, like on a redraft team, fire them both up, man. Like this is the last week of the playoffs, and if you're looking to get into the playoffs, you got these 2 on your team. Start them both, unless you got unless you somehow have like CMC and like Josh Jacobs, who's playing tonight, and and Zeke and maybe Tony Pollard. Like it's possible you could easily have all 4 of those guys on. Like you draft.
Yeah,
all
don't
4
bend over backwards to get Zeke in your lineup. Pollard's clearly the low end RB1, high end RB2, whatever you want to call him this week.
I said what? No, Pollard is a must start. Like he is I bet I'd be surprised if he didn't end up as a top 5 back this week.
Nice. Love it.
For reals.
I'm starting him in Dynasty because I don't have any other choice, and he's been awesome. I'm super excited about him, man. A little bit of regret. I mean, I guess with the Zeke deal, with any hindsight, would you have regretted dealing Zeke for a 2nd-round pick like I did earlier in the year? While I've got you on the subject.
What do you mean? Like trading
Given that
for
I'm
him?
going to make the playoffs, would you have some regret for having dealt Zeke for a 2nd-round pick earlier in the year like I did?
I mean, I guess it seems pretty fair in hindsight, considering that Zeke wasn't playing that great when you traded him.
Fair. Mm-hmm.
In hindsight, it's a very fair trade, and it was a fair trade at that time too. So,
and that is a fair answer.
I don't feel like it's whoever you traded it to, we'll call him Steve because I don't remember who you traded him to or what the person's name is. If Steve's not laughing all the way to the bank, because he's got traded Zeke for this, like,
he's
a fair trade.
Usable to your point, though. Definitely usable to your point. Onward and upward, I actually skipped one. Garrett Wilson versus the Bills. Garrett Wilson has been on a tear since since Mike White replaced MILF Hunter. Zach Wilson as the Jets starting quarterback.
Gross.
In that time, the last 2 games, aka the last 2 games, Wilson is averaging 128 yards and has scored twice in the 2 Mike White games. Buffalo hasn't been particularly good versus the pass either. They now rank 11th worst in terms of fantasy points per game given up to the wide receiver position and 18th worst in passing yards surrendered. They have allowed a receiver to reach 100 yards in 3 of their last 4 games and have given up 6 touchdowns over that same 4-game span. 2 wide receivers, including allowing a cornerback playing wide receiver to score on them last week versus the Patriots. I thought that was a little funny thing to include there. Kind of upset me when I saw him take it to the house. Now, Buffalo is still elite versus the run, ranking 10th best in fantasy points per game given up to backs, 5th best in rushing yards allowed, and 10th best in rushing touchdowns allowed. Despite Bam Knight showing us he belongs in the starting lineup, I expect the Jets to
We'll
attack
talk
their
about him
division
in a
rivals.
second, Chris.
I expect the Jets to attack their division rivals through the air, and Garrett Wilson will be the primary beneficiary, especially as Buffalo is damn good versus tight ends also, and Tyler Conklin is, well, Tyler Conklin. For me, that makes Wilson a low-end wide receiver 1 this week.
I'm sorry, Chris. Did you say Bam Knight?
I did.
Huh. Well, that happens to be my next guy I was
It's like
going
we
to talk
planned
about.
these transitions. We didn't.
This might be a bad matchup on paper for one Zonovan Knight and company. The Bills may be allowing only the 10th fewest points per game, but that could change with Knight and Michael Carter, assuming health, being utilized to slow the game down. The Jets' D is good enough to help stifle the Bills' air attack, and the Jets will need to run the ball effectively or efficiently, either way, and then run the ball some more to keep the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. In week 9, these two teams met where Michael Carter and James Robinson, the limping corpse of James Robinson, combined for 124 yards, with Carter leading that two-headed attack. Guess what, Chris? Guess what happened, Chris? The freaking Jets won.
Yeah.
Despite averaging only 51.5% of the Jets snaps the last 2 weeks that Zonovan McKnight has played, he's averaging 12.5 fantasy points in those games. So that's pretty good. That's very usable right now. And this year, the year of our trash can 2022. That is also without scoring a touchdown too. So he's doing that with like
Volume.
12 and a half scoreless. Yeah, a lot of usage, but when he's in the game, he's getting used I'm probably jinxing this, Chris, but BM Knight has also caught all 8 of his targets too. I feel like every time I mention this, the next week they biff it, and I'm like, man, I totally jinxed that. But I'm just saying. So he's got an averaging 4 receptions per game too. So it's not like he's just getting it done on the ground. Like this could easily be a nice steal for the Jets, who Breece Hall.
Oh yeah, undrafted.
Undrafted. I mean, I think he got hurt very late in his career at. Don't tell me, South Carolina.
That sounds right. You got me, honestly. I'll look it up.
I think it's South Carolina. Maybe NC State.
I think that's actually correct. That rings more of a bell.
I think it's NC State. Anyways, like he was a pretty decent running back coming out of college. He got injured very late in his college career. He wasn't supposed to be like a first round pick or anything. But honestly, like Michael Carter has not really wowed me all that much. He's got that good game against Buffalo, but compared to what he was scoring last year versus this year, I know the Jets' offensive line is really banged up and everything. But Zonovan Knight has added a much needed breath of fresh air in the backfield for the Jets. So I think you should start him with some confidence again this week. He's probably going to be like your flex / RB2 out there for you.
That's a matchup. Yeah, I would agree. I like it. I would say 2 things. First, being a bit of a pushback. Carter's going to be back. He definitely seems to be their quote satellite back. So I'm not saying you can kiss all 6 of those, approximate targets goodbye, but because I do think Zonovan will be on the field first and second down, and it doesn't mean you don't throw on first and second, although they are a bit of a run-heavy team, and of course I touted Mr. Garrett Wilson. Secondly, what do you think about long-term? You think probably move on from Carter? Obviously, we know Breece probably isn't starting right off the bat next year. Probably going to be Zonovan and or anybody else they bring in, but probably.
I mean, Carter's dirt cheap right now, anyways. So why not stick with him? Same with.
Isn't he only on his second year? So
yeah,
2 more years left. That's a fair point.
And he was like a 3rd round pick too. So he's like,
and they're a run heavy team, so
they owe him next. They owe Carter next to nothing. So Carter will definitely be in the mix next year, unless they can get someone to who wants to trade for him or something. But otherwise,
that would change it. Yeah, I'll give him
the Jets. The Jets have no money sunk into anything other than they have no money in their quarterback because they have a young quarterback. They have no money in their backfield. They have next to no money in their wide receiving core. So they can. I mean, you proved.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know,
because even Moore is on his rookie contract still.
Obviously, yeah, the only money they have put into their wide receiving core is Corey Davis, and he's not good. So I don't know
Yeah,
his.
I'm
I don't
pretty
know.
sure they can get out from under that in a matter of a season or so.
Yeah, I don't know
If
what
not
his
right away.
contract situation is exactly, but
I don't think it's unreasonable from the Jets' perspective.
well,
Oops,
if this
wrong
link would
button.
open, I can tell you after this year, potential out. So,
So I was on the right track.
with a dead cap of less than $750,000. It's actually a dead cap of $2/3 million. So
Nice.
Corey
Under $1
Davis is
million.
probably gone, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right, my second and last Fave 5 wide receiver of the week gets a little dicey here because there were some updates. I mentioned it earlier in the injuries. So I'm going to give you one Mike Williams / Josh Palmer versus the Dolphins. This one is pretty simple. What the heck? Okay, yeah, my first sentence didn't make sense. My apologies. This one is pretty simple. The Chargers are one of the most pass-happy teams in the league, ranking second behind the Bucs.
I'm sorry, who's your guy?
Mike Williams / Josh Palmer versus the Dolphins. The Chargers being one of the most pass-happy teams in the league, ranking second behind just the Bucs with a 66% passing play percentage and second in passing attempts. No surprise, those two stats correlate. This was originally going to be Josh Palmer, but during the writing of the notes, I got the update that Mike Williams was a full practice on Thursday. The Chargers throw a ton, and they will need to keep up with the Dolphins' potent attack. When Mike Williams is healthy, he is the Chargers' best outside threat. And even with Keenan returning, Palmer has been solid in Williams' absence. Obviously, tune in and check the practice report on Friday to see if Williams has any setbacks. But if Williams play, I like him in this matchup. If not, I would pivot to Palmer to a lesser degree, more like a flex play for Palmer. The Dolphins are a decent matchup in terms of passing yardage surrendered, ranking 12th worst, but are limiting fantasy points per game given up to wide receivers, ranking 11th best. So not so great, kind of there. But they haven't played anybody worth a damn in a few weeks. Last week they played Jimmy G till he left with injury, and Brock Purdy, aka Mr. Irrelevant, who actually threw 2 touchdowns, but that was both to backs, CMC and that fullback they have there.
Kyle Juszczyk.
Thank you. The game before was Kyle Allen and the Texans' woeful offense. The game before that, Jacoby Brissett. Then finally, the game before that, Justin Fields.
Okay, wait. I'm sorry. I will not sit here and let you besmirch the good name of Jacoby Brissett.
He's kept that ship afloat. Let's put it that way.
I mean, sort of. They've been slowly taking on water.
Yeah, but it wasn't good. I wish I could remember that was a home or away game for the Browns and Amari. But anyway, it was not impressive what the receivers did versus the Dolphins, to my point. Then finally, the game before that, Justin Fields. But we all know he is more of a threat on the ground, although Mooney did score. So all that is to say that I expect a shootout. It's, I believe, I don't have it written down here, but it's like the second highest over under at like 52 points, in terms of Chargers versus the Dolphins. So I know Williams can be up and down, but I feel like there's teams out there pushing for the playoffs that are going to need a kind of last minute start. He's pretty widely rostered, but I see Williams as a low end wide receiver 2, and Palmer, as I mentioned, as a flex if Williams is out. That's all I got on those two.
Okie dokie. Artichoke. One last guy, and it ain't good. Latavius Murray versus Kansas City. Like Zonovan Knight, the Broncos are going to need to lean on their stellar pass defense and run game to even hang in there with the Chiefs. Murray has been okay over the last 4 games. He's had a couple of clunkers, but those were against the Titans and last week against the Ravens, who were bad at the beginning of the year, but then they got Roquan Smith, and it has been a vast improvement to their defense and stopping the run. At 21 points per game to running backs, the Chiefs are giving up the 15th most. So 21 points per game, Latavius Murray should get the lion's share of those 21 points there that the Chiefs have been giving up on average. So I like Latavius to be a nice flex guy for you this week. Not a lot there, because I don't have a lot to say about Latavius Murray because he doesn't inspire me too much. But if you're looking to get in the playoffs or to hold your playoff seeding, Latavius Murray could easily help you out.
I don't hate it. Don't hate it. You might hate this, though. I'm just kidding. I mentioned this guy as a sleeper, kind of an honorable mention last week. I mentioned him as a sleeper because I had running backs, of course, last week. Zay Jones versus the Titans. I touted Zay as an extra sleeper last week versus Lions, and it didn't work out well at all. Now, the game was a shootout for the Lions. It was a one-sided blowout, and Zay Jones didn't produce any fantasy goodness. But he is getting the snaps and targets. He currently ranks 21st in targets per game among wide receivers. But targets and snaps don't mean diddly, and if he's not getting receptions, yards, and touchdowns, who cares? Enter the Titans. The Titans are dead last in fantasy points per game given up to wide receivers. Second to last in passing yards surrendered, and fourth to last in passing touchdowns given up. They just gave up over 100 yards each to both A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, and a combined 3 touchdowns to those two last week. Jones has shown, besides Detroit last week, as I mentioned, he can take advantage of a good matchup, such as Baltimore and the Chargers, who both rank in the bottom half in terms of passing yardage surrendered, and the Chargers rank 6th worst in passing touchdowns allowed, right behind the aforementioned Titans that he plays this week. In those 2 games, they averaged 12.5 targets, 10.5 catches, 115 yards, and half a touchdowns, and 20.75 fantasy points. Now, I don't expect them to perform that well this week, but I do expect them to finish it as a low-end wide receiver 3/flex play for you folks who need a start.
Okie dokie.
I'm gonna start saying over and out or something. Transition.
No, I
wave my arms.
I was just kind of soaking it all.
Soaking it in.
I was doing. Just soaking it in, man. Just soaking it in.
There's a lot of wetness to soak in there. I get it.
Don't ever say that again. Don't ever say that again.
Oh, that was fun.
Oh, we're on to tight ends. Okay, here we go.
Yes, sir.
Chris, you're prepared to give me an A+ here because
I've got a bucket under the desk. Oh, I thought I was prepared to vomit.
Oh no, well that too. But get prepared to hand out a gold star here, man.
Okay.
My first tight end is Chikoziem Okonkwo.
I considered it. Continue, please.
The rookie tight end for the Tennessee Titans. And Chris, I'm pretty sure I just nailed that shit. So give me my
good.
Gold
That's
star.
the gold star you were speaking of.
Chikoziem Okonkwo. He's the rookie tight end out of Maryland. He's 6'3", 238 pounds. He ran a 4.53 40 at the combine.
Yeah,
that's
beast
pretty good, man, for a tight end. Pretty
Absolutely.
good.
He's a beast of a physical
he was a top 10 recruit coming out of high school in Georgia. Yeah, he's raw, but he's an athletic tight end. Okonkwo has seen his snap percentage increase over the past 5 or so weeks compared to the first half of the season. It's still not up above 60%, but this is more about having a new name, and I'm just ready for a new flavor of turd that is at the tight end position. You know, Okonkwo may be more of a dynasty play or dynasty stash, but he's got a decent matchup this week, and the Titans are taking on Jacksonville, who are allowing 9.9 points per game to tight ends, or the 12th most. So, Okonkwo, I mean, you know, if you're sitting there and you're just churning the bottom, like the tight end carousel, round and round it goes, here it can stop an Okonkwo. Yeah. You know,
I hope you get a gold star for recommending this guy to the folks out there that are the many folks out there that are desperate at tight end.
Draft Travis Kelce in the first round next year.
I mean, obviously, it's hyperbolic, but he wasn't so great last week. But I mean, he's amazing this year. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you guess who I should have started over Travis Kelce last week? Just about anyone on my dynasty roster. I'm so glad I gave up a first-round pick for him.
It was still like 7 points.
He's been helping. He's been helping.
Of course, that fumble hurt. That fumble is, and I had said as much in a fantasy recap that I did. Anyway, tight ends. I'm not excited about this at all, folks. I'm just going to level with you. I am going back to the well, as it were. Evan Ingram versus the Titans. Coming off his second best game of the season, when I recommended him last week, which of course he scored because all tight ends are touchdown dependent except for perhaps Kelce. Trevor Lawrence has been playing well lately. 6 touchdowns in his last 3 games with 3 solid fantasy finishes in a row. I'd put question mark QB1. I know 2 of them were QB1 finishes. I'm not sure about the 17-point week. That might have been borderline. Anyway, the Titans are 13th worst versus fantasy tight ends, and Evan Ingram has a pulse. Kind of to Josh's point, I really don't have much else to go on here, folks. Wait till I get to my second guy.
I actually kind of like my second guy.
Okay. Well, your first one was definitely a deep dive, and I don't want to say a shot in the dark. That's a little too critical, but
great Ozzy Osbourne song, just great, fucking stellar. I don't like this song. Keep going.
I was done with Mr. Evan Ingram. As you might be after this. I'm kidding. I'm
ready to stop hearing about him.
He scored like 11 points last week. Granted, he got a touchdown again. So.
Okay. So you're just patting yourself on the back. Got it.
Oh, well, that and the Titans are awful versus tight ends. Oh, I'm sorry. 13th worst. 13th worst.
Okay, then.
Awful versus
my next guy is Hunter Henry, and I'm going to keep it just real short and simple here. He's playing the Cardinals. While the Cardinals have been a little bit better against the tight end lately, you still play your tight ends against the Cardinals. I am in at least one league this week playing Hunter Henry, so I think you should as well. Short and sweet.
That's kind of what I was getting at with Evan Ingram. I just don't have a lot to go on, folks, because this is the.
I would like to throw it in an honorable mention in the third, and this might be low-hanging fruit with Mark Andrews. And more on that in just a second. Keep going.
I see. I definitely looked long and hard at the New England guys, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. But I do not hate the start at all. On to my second tight end streamer of the week, Greg Dulcich versus the Chiefs. The nice thing about Dulcich is when he has a nice game, he isn't actually touchdown dependent. He's getting plenty of targets and catches, again, in the games he does well in. And with Sutton most likely out, I expect the ball has to go somewhere. To your point earlier, Josh, Judy looks like he's on track to play. He's questionable with an ankle, but I think he was...
Are you worried about Trevor Lawrence not playing this week, though? You've been really kind of going down the jag.
Oh, going back to Ingram?
And Zay Jones and...
Zay Jones. No, I think he'll be all right. But we should definitely give our folks an update on that before we skedaddle out of here.
You always say that, and we never do.
I will. Let me finish up with Dulcich real quick because it won't take long. As I mentioned, the nice thing about Dulcich is he tends to get decent volume in the games that he's actually used. That kind of goes hand in hand. But he's not necessarily touchdown dependent like most of our streaming tight ends will be. Kansas City isn't a great matchup, ranking 19th worst versus fantasy tight ends, but have given up the 10th most passing yards on the season and are tied for the most passing touchdowns given up, probably because teams have to throw against him to catch up. That's all I got on Dulcich. He had a nice game last week, I think it was. And then, as we just mentioned, we're going to double check on Mr. Lawrence.
Okay. Chris, my quarterback stream of the week is Tyler Huntley, the Lamar Jackson's backup. Lamar Jackson's injured. We already covered that. He is probably not going to play. So Mr. Tyler Huntley is the most suitable guy really to back up Lamar Jackson. He is the most Lamar Jackson guy outside of probably Jalen Hurts that is in the league right now.
Well, Fields,
last year,
yeah, I get you.
What's that?
Fields, but I get what you're saying.
I actually like Huntley better than Fields to take Lamar Jackson's place. You know what I'm saying?
Long term,
like maybe. I mean, remember last year? There was some talk last year that Tyler Huntley was
good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not
was outplaying Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with.
Anyways,
yeah. Go ahead.
So last year in the 5 games, 4 of which Huntley started, he ran for an average of 56.8 yards per game. He only threw 3 touchdowns, but he ran 2 in as well. The Steelers are allowing 15.7 rushing yards per game to quarterbacks this season, but they're giving up the 9th most fantasy points per game to the quarterback position. The wide receiving core may be thin for Huntley, but Mark Andrews is still there. So please throw the ball to Andrews. I really would like to become the top seed in Dynasty. to pour on the Mark Andrews love last
Mhm.
year in the games that Huntley played, it was 11.3, 23, 30.6, 11.9, and 12.5 points that Mark Andrews scored with Tyler Huntley behind center. So let's hope that Huntley can rekindle some Mark Andrews magic.
Sounds good. Update on Lawrence. Toe remains sidelined at Thursday's practice, so he did DNP. Coach Doug Peterson indicated Wednesday that he thought the quarterback may be able to practice at some point this week with DeRocco, I guess a beat reporter, suggesting that could occur Friday with a shorter workout on tap for Friday for the Jaguars. Lawrence has said he expects to play Sunday against the Titans, but it seems likely that nonetheless.
Is that his injury a toe?
Yeah, it's a toe. I thought I got a little better description earlier this week. I think it was a toe. It was a stub toe, Josh. I'm kidding. I don't know.
Probably.
Something.
Right.
Looked it up real quick on Twitter. I don't know. This guy is saying something to monitor. He mentions that, Lawrence has been pretty decent on the ground. Yeah, I think he'll be all right. Keep an eye on practice reports on Friday because, yes, that would put Evan Ingram and Zay Jones in the toilet. I think I'm up for sleeper.
Who is...
Go ahead.
Trevor Lawrence's backup?
Gosh, I have no idea.
I don't even know either. Anyways, keep going.
My sleeper of the week is DJ Chark versus the Vikings. If you may recall, I had Amon-Ra St. Brown as my, top guy on my Fave 5 this week.
Oh,
it's not still.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at Trevor
the
Lawrence's backup.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who is it? Let's just go for it.
Former Iowa quarterback,
CJ Beathard.
Yep. Anyways.
Yeah, not so great, guys. DJ Chark versus the Vikings. Chark has been coming on as of late, since returning from IR from his ankle injury and assimilating back into the lineup. He has averaged 78.5 snap share the last 2 games, 5.5 targets, and just missed 100 yards last week versus the Jaguars. He is a deep threat wide receiver.
Wait. You skipped over your quarterback.
Oh, my bad. I'm so sorry.
Keep going with DJ Chark.
Might as well finish up my sleeper. Might as well finish up my sleeper.
You're right. Minute here.
My bad. Man, that's the second time I did that tonight. I guess.
The
where
second time
were
you skipped
we?
over your quarterback stream? Anyways. Keep
No,
going.
second time I skipped over something tonight.
I know what you meant.
Where were we? Chark just missed 100 yards last week versus Jag. He is the deep threat, as opposed to Amon-Ra being more of the possession intermediate guy. I like him as a low-end flex in this juicy matchup. And if it comes to mind, Jamison Williams only played 8 snaps and is still being eased in. There's no rush, is the impression I'm getting out of Lions camp all year, actually. But there's no rush with the offense, and the wide receivers playing very well, especially at home.
He's also a rookie, too. Like, outside of injury, he's also a rookie. So...
Oh, and like I mentioned with Amon-Ra, gosh, this is a really high over-under, I'm pretty sure. Maybe the highest of the week. I don't remember where I mentioned that. But yeah, I expect a lot of points, and that's my sleeper out of order. I almost did
DJ Chark last week, and I decided against it. And then the sleeper that I had for last week, originally written down, was Donovan Peoples-Jones, who had himself a nice game last week.
Yeah, it was around double digit. Both of them, actually. Chark was 12.3.
Yeah. Anyways, my sleeper this week is Trent Sherfield of the going up against the Los Angeles Chargers.
So you're going to go.
I don't believe you mentioned this,
too.
but Jalen Waddle got himself a bit of injury last week. He has like a fractured tibia or something like that. It was kind of unclear when I looked this up what the hell was going on with Jalen Waddle. And here's the thing too: does Jalen Waddle play this week? Who knows? If he does, how much does he play? He was in and after he sustained the injury last week. He was in and out of the game, and he was clearly hobbled by the injury during the game. So, and this is a little bit of recency bias because Trent Sherfield caught a very long touchdown last week. That was about all he did. But anyways, I'm assuming Waddle is there's some negative reports about Waddle. I like Sherfield this week, and he could be a solid sleeper / flex play for you this week. Well, it's the Chargers D that has been better as of late to the wide receiver position, but can still struggle with coverage at times.
Gotcha. Waddle did log a full practice today.
Cool. Good for him.
Tyreek Hill missed Thursday practice due to an illness. So it remains to be seen if they'll have both of them. So I don't hate the Sherfield out.
It's a sleeper pick. I'm not saying that you need to start him.
There you go. Did you skip your quarterback or did you choose to because
Tyler
I
Huntley?
Oh, thank you. Okay. Back to my quarterback stream of the week as previously touched upon. Ooh, gross. Jared Goff versus the Vikings. Goff at home again, baby. He's been playing the best football of his life, according to him. And I'd probably agree. He's been a quarterback one the last 2 weeks. And again, more with Chark and Amon-Ra. They're at home. They've been putting up a lot of points. One of the best offenses in the league. I really like Jared Goff versus the Vikings. I would like to put an honorable mention forward for Trevor Lawrence versus the Titans if he plays. A little bit of that going around this week. But no, I did want to include Trevor Lawrence as an honorable mention. Goff is much less rostered at 59%. Lawrence is 67% rostered. So they're out there. And I'm sure there's teams that need him, be it Justin Fields managers. Gosh, who else? That's about it probably as far as bye weeks go.
Lamar Jackson managers. Maybe missed out on
Lamar
Huntley.
Jackson managers. Good point. Injury.
Jimmy Garoppolo managers?
They're out there probably in deep leagues.
Probably.
Maybe.
2 quarterback leagues?
Good point. That's what I meant. Okay.
Anyways. Chris, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I don't have anything else. And chat is quiet as far as I know. I've been checking.
Anyways.
That takes us out.
So we've been Amazing Fantasy Football. I am Josh. Over there is Chris. You can follow me on Twitter at JoshAFFB. And you can follow Chris at AFFB Chris. Because you just had to be different. You can tune in on Sunday. We do a Sunday morning stream with last minute injury news. You can ask your lineup questions. You can just chit chat about whatever's coming to your mind too, because that's kind of what Chris and I do anyways on the Sunday stream. And as always, you can check out this stream if you're catching the very tail end of it. You missed out on a show. And that is done every Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Time. And the Sunday one, if I didn't mention it, is 10 a.m. Central Time Sunday morning. Of course it's AM if it's Sunday morning, but regardless of that, Chris, you got anything else for the people other than to wish them a good luck and happy playoff hunting?
Happy playoff run. That's about it.
Cool. Good luck, everyone.
Adios.
Bye-bye.